The team that I'm waiting to see if we can see that from is going to be OMG, and I want to see it in this draft. Already we're starting off good. We got the Pantheon banned.
Let's see how this draft is going to go. We'll see if JDG can tear themselves out of the plastic box in this draft and look towards a victory. It's going to be Pantheon, Kiana, and Varus banned away from OMG. On the other side, we've got Akali, Lucian.
Aphelios. But oh no.
It's going to be Rumble. Aphelios is going to come on in. I'd be surprised if it's not first pick. But again, like earlier today, Wink played it very well. I don't feel like it was the single reason that they won the game, though. I don't feel like eStar wouldn't have won if they didn't have the Aphelios. It is going to be first picked anyway. It is still insanely strong.
Yeah, It's a pretty strong one, especially when we're looking towards SMLZ as well. Coming back from Suning, this is a guy looking to prove himself. Coming back to OMG, we talked about him pairing up with Icon now as well to try and help out in that carry position. And if you're going to come into your first game of the split with the Aphelios, this is all you need to make your stamp on this team.
I mean, one of the regular things that's said about OMG is that Icon is the superstar, right? He's usually the guy front and center. He looks the part. You know, this is the guy. And Hacker and SMLZ, they're kind of like his backup singers, but this is SMLZ. He's got his opportunity for a solo here. He's going to step on forward, drop a freestyle rap on Aphelios. We'll see if he's going to be able to bring it forward here, but Zoom and Kanavi going to lock in here the Nautilus and the Ornn. Very early lock-in of the Ornn there.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting to see the Ornn locked in. I thought they'd go for something in the jungle position, you know, the likes of the Gragas or something along those lines to try and get themselves set up for Kanavi, because Kanavi, I feel like, is the linchpin in a lot of these scenarios for the side of JDG. He plays a lot through Yagao and Zoom, but they haven't been prioritizing this here, and with that Ornn locked in, it becomes an easy lock-in for the Braum on the far side. I think this is a little bit of a misplay coming in from JDG in the draft.
Yeah, and the issue there as well for the side of JDG is it's now a bit more difficult to lock in the Misfortune. It's still available, but against a Braum, it hurts because, you know, as soon as he drops that Unbreakable, the ultimate is just wasted.
We'll be looking to see what they decide to go from here. Will be the Olaf Hubbard at the moment for Hacker. I was going to say I'd prefer to see the Jarvan come in. This has been something the Hacker has played pretty well on when he was back on Suning. Actually going back nearly 2 splits now was definitely something that he loved to pick up for himself back when Zhao Al or Long Xin was on the team. But I like this here because you've already got a very good setup. You've got the Jarvan that can go into Cataclysm. The Braum as well can provide that Glacial Fissure, which has been changed on 10.1. Provides a 1 second to 1.5 second knockup. So you allow that amount of time for Aphelios to just run through people. And as well, if you want to pick up something like a Rise, well, in this pick, or in this draft, you have a lot of damage that has just free reign in these team fights.
You're now going to opt to go for a LeBlanc here, wanting to make some plays and have that upfront burst damage available, especially against the likes of an Aphelios. I'm a big fan of going for an Assassin there, trying to take him out of the game, but when it comes to the bans, we've got the Mordekaiser taken away. Also, still going to ban the Misfortune, despite the Braum pick there, and I think that's perfectly reasonable. Just get it off the board. It's such a strong pick right now.
There's definitely a pinch on that AD carry role at the moment, though, because you're looking for OMG. It's like, okay, we banned the Misfortune. Senna's the other AD carry that we've seen as the go-to in a lot of these scenarios, but after that, you're starting to really dip out of what will be considered the top-tier AD carries, and Aphelios, to be honest, has no real problem going up against the Senna in the lane anyway, because she's not really going to push you in, she's not really going to do much damage to you, and Aphelios has that time to start to rack up the levels that he needs to get into those stats and also rack up those items.
The Kindred being hovered here, that would be an exciting pick to take a look at. I believe Kanavi has played the Kindred before. In fact, he played it during the Demacia Cup, so it could be going the way of Kanavi. It's been seen in the AD carry position before. I'm not willing to say that it's going to be, though.
I know. I like that you're putting the caveat there, but this is going to be definitely going towards Kanavi in that jungle role. Definitely a very strong skirmisher, and something that I think JDG are going to be looking to go for here. I mean, if you can have Yagao and Loken, or sorry, not Yagao and Loken, Yagao and Kanavi roaming up towards that top side to work in conjunction with the CC that the Ornn can provide, this can be a pretty devastating duo to try and deal with if you're cursed on that top side of the map.
Looks like Kai'Sa might be the final lock-in here, as Cassiopeia and Aatrox were locked in for OMG. So Curse going to be taking the Aatrox up towards that top lane, and you'd expect the Cassiopeia to go into the hands of Icon there. Certainly a pick that he can be a difference maker on. If you can land a huge ultimate there, if you can get the Petrifying Gaze down, you can just influence the team fight so significantly. But actually, the hover is changed at the last second, and Loken going to be falling back on the Caitlyn pick.
This was actually something that he did in the Demacia Cup, where once we saw the Sen and the MF gone, was defaulting back towards the Caitlyn. So we'll have to see how this one does fare up. It's something that can start to punish Aphelios a little bit when he doesn't have the Calibrum available, because you do have that range discrepancy. But as long as the Calibrum is up, Aphelios can do somewhat okay in keeping his distance. But I think when we look towards OMG, this is a pretty terrifying team fighting composition. You've got great engage that can come through from the Jarvan and also from that Braum. You've got good disengage for anyone who does manage to sneak their way past that double ultimate. Was known as 5, has now name changed to Cold, and Braum was his most played last split, or well, at the end of the summer split. So this is definitely a champion that he's comfortable on, and now the fact that it's just a super strong pick is only more beneficial for OMG.
All right, OMG up against JDG. It's about time we get into this series and start things off on Summoner's Rift. It's a decent showing coming out from OMG, honestly. I was expecting that to be way more one-sided towards JDG there. They're in their home stadium. They're in the home ground. I thought that maybe they would have a bit more support than that.
No, I mean, OMG have definitely got a big fan base there for themselves, particularly Icon in the mid lane is definitely, as we said, the superstar. A lot of people following him, but we'll have to see if the junglers are going to follow him as well, because I feel like this is where OMG need the help. This is why Hacker was brought into the team. Their 2v2 has not really been on point, and they really wanted a bit more stability in the jungle. You've got Hacker coming from Suning. We'll have to see if he's capable of providing that going up against Kanavi from JDG.
We'll see what Kanavi is going to be able to do on that Kindred pick. I mean, Kindred, I think, is one of the most fun picks to watch in League of Legends, just because it's such a different style to most of the junglers. You know, the AD carry in the jungle is something that you don't see all too often. Kanavi is a player that we've seen on it in the past. You can be aggressive, though, in the early game. You can force the issue when it comes to these stacks, and that's exactly what Kanavi's going to do here. Hacker going to be going for his red buff, but it's smited away, and suddenly Hacker is in a whole heap of trouble. Smites the Gromp just to get himself some life there. Kanavi misclicks. He walked backwards for a second, and I think that might have been the difference maker on Hacker not being able to get away.
Well, they do have Curse coming across as well, but Kanavi's in a pretty decent spot. There's a flag and drag.
Oh, beautiful flash from Hacker, but Kanavi matches it with a flash of his own. There's first blood. Curse brings down his blade.
I was about to say Kanavi had done a great job there. Would have forced Hacker back. Would have been able to shut down any sort of early game shenanigans that Jarvan can go for, particularly around that level 3 mark. But unfortunately, tries to bite off that little bit too much. And Curse can react first. Zoom did not come across to support the jungler in time. And Kanavi gives all for naught.
Yeah, Zoom doing the opposite of his name there. He's too slow to make things happen. Loken gets a mark on him from Cold. There's no real follow-up there. SMLZ maybe not having the right weapons equipped at the time. It's definitely a matter of preference when it comes to the Aphelios.
I think this is actually a pretty big shutdown for JDG. Having Kanavi fall behind like this, would have liked to have been able to be in a lead, so that then you can start to, as you were pointing out, play a very different game where you can get in, you can invade, you can start to get those marks up and running for yourself. But unfortunately, having that shut down, or well, that play shut down for themselves, means that now Hacker has control of the top side. He can go up towards that first mark that's posed there just outside the Baron pit, and Kanavi just has to let that one go because he gave over a kill to Curse in the early stages.
Yeah, he's lost his tempo there. He's lost his ability to dictate where he wants to go on the map, and suddenly, especially when you're playing Kindred, that can become a big issue. If you can't get hold of those marks early on in the game, it can be very difficult to get to a good position. Obviously, your cooldowns are affected by those marks.
We are looking at our first dragon of the game, though, is going to be that Ocean Drake, so wouldn't be surprised to see the teams try to get at least a little bit of control in around this dragon so they can secure that one for themselves. I think most certainly, though, it should be in favor of JDG. Loken and Lumao should be able to control that bottom lane with the Caitlyn, and you've got Yagao, who can be an absolute nuisance to deal with when setting up for that Drake objective because of how quickly and how mobile the LeBlanc is in the mid lane.
You can see the Ornn runes there. Nothing too crazy coming out from Zoom. Relatively standard rune page. Does have a lot of MR. Oh, sorry, that's Adaptive Force that he's going to be going for. But generally, you know, the grasp on the Ornn, not too surprising.
I mean, we're pretty much having standard across the board when it does come towards those rune pages. And I think that's why we're going to see pretty much Yagao try to back away right here. You want to try and get as much AP as possible underneath your belt before you hit that level 6 mark, or in the round you hitting that level 6 mark, so you can try to chunk out your opponent. I mean, well, speaking of.
Yeah, huge damage coming out from Curse there. Doing a great job just to try and bully Zoom on this Ornn pick before he gets too much armor. That's the thing about Ornn. He doesn't have to leave the lane ever, so got to try and punish him when you can. Hackers come down to the bottom lane, and he's found Loken already challenging. Smite goes down. Flash from Loken will keep him alive.
I'm going to see the same on the top side, though.
Another flash coming on through. Curse going to try and turn things on to Kanavi here, but I don't think he has the damage, and Zoom grabs himself a kill.
Yeah, you're going to be happy with that one. Kanavi, after the misstep in the early game, now equalizes it up, able to turn that kill around. And we already said that this is the game plan from JDG. They love to play around Zoom and Yagao, and in that case, the Ornn is the easiest person to go for, and Kanavi is able to pick up a kill for the Zoom in the top side.
Yagao jumping on forwards there. Misses his ethereal chains, though, so can't really follow up on the combo. He's hit 6 first, but it is going to be Icon hitting 6 now as well, so can't really be quite as aggressive as he wants to be now.
I'm watching where Curse is going at the moment, trying to again keep control of this Scuttle Crab just to keep it away from Kanavi and make sure that you're not able to pick up any of the marks for themselves. Will spot that that one has been taken away, so Kanavi will be forced to back, and OMG so far are doing a good job of trying to shut down this Kindred when it comes to picking up any of the camps that would help out in that passive.
Man, it's such a rough situation for Kanavi when you fall behind on the Kindred, when you can't get the marks. It's so difficult to have as much of an impact in the game and kind of make your presence feel known. You feel so far behind. Obviously, we'll be able to mark players if you can find some good ganks, but certainly not an ideal situation.
We can see Lumao is off on roaming duty at the moment, trying to see if he can make a play around the mid lane, but there's not really much to be happening when you come to the OMG side. They're doing a good job of staying close underneath their turret. Particularly Icon knows how dangerous it can be and how easy of a setup it is for LeBlanc to get those chains down, so they're going to back away. They spotted that Hacker was on that top side already, going to be clearing out the jungle, so Hacker is going to turn around and try and pick up this dragon for themselves.
Kanavi going to be heading on into the jungle alongside Yagao. We'll be able to steal this blue buff in response to Hacker going for that dragon. Definitely a trade that goes the way of OMG right now. That I'd take the Ocean Drake over a blue buff every day of the week.
Most certainly. And it's not really going to be too much of a hassle. I mean, Icon is going to back away, but we'll finish off that tier, so we'll have a steady flow coming in. Would have been great to have that blue to try and keep Yagao honest and keep him in lane, because if Yagao does get his, well, he picked up the blue there, can push in pretty effectively against Icon and then look to get the roams going. But Kanavi is doing a decent job of, I thought he was going to go and curse there, but the JDG are just looking to try and get these roams out and get into these side lanes.
When we take a look at the builds across the board here, you can see up in Zoom's inventory, it's already getting very difficult for Curse to do anything up against that Ornn. He has so much armor already. The kill pressure is all but gone from the side of Aatrox there. That makes this lane a little bit more difficult for the side of OMG. I'm curious where Hacker's focus is going to be across the course of the rest of this game.
I'd imagine that it is going to be going in towards the top side of the map, trying to get on towards the Ornn, but Hacker is hovering mid, Lumel is there.
Icon going to be rooted on up here, forced on back, and well, that's going to be a kill for sure. Icon goes down, and I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. 4 versus 1.
Now, there is 0 that they can do in that scenario. SMLZ is answering back with some decent turret plating in the mid, but we are starting to see the game plan from JDG, the same one that we saw from Summer, come out in force this time around as well. Zoom picks up the first kill. Cool, you go out. Now it's your turn to have a gank. And the Dumpling brothers are constantly helping each other out.
Yeah, fantastic stuff coming out. And Icon, unfortunately, falling behind on this Cassiopeia. And again, similar to the Rise, one of these picks that wants to be scaling towards the late game, but unfortunately for Cassiopeia, has to build a lot of mana in the early game, meaning that the damage, unless you're able to just free fire from the backline, really isn't there.
And that's why I actually am surprised that Hacker did manage to steal away that dragon. I thought JDG would have put a little bit more focus on it to try and draw OMG into a team fight, but because they didn't, it meant that OMG now have the opportunity to sit back and scale, and that's exactly what they want to do. Get SMLZ into a position where he can carry in the Aphelios, get that mana, an extra little bit of damage coming through from the Cassiopeia, because yes, you've got the Caitlyn on the far side, but overall, if you can set up these team fights and get OMG into a position where they can have decent control of an area, their team fight should be where they win out.
Now, it's worth mentioning, I'm not 100% sure here, but I believe that Kanavi managed to get himself that stack up towards the top side. Yeah, you can see it's moved towards the Gromp now. Did manage to find the Scuttle Crab around the Rift Herald for himself. So Kanavi's kind of moved away from that perma-lock that can happen with the Scuttle Crabs. If you can't get that objective underneath yourself, then yeah, you can just end up in a situation where you never get these marks.
Well, let's take stock of kind of, you know, where we are at when it does come to JDG, because we kind of said already, look, OMG, what they're looking to do is scale up, then look for team fights. JDG, we've already seen them starting to enact on their game plan, which is going to be try to get Yagao and Zoom rolling so then we can make plays like this. Here
we go, big damage coming on through, goes Golden, but SMLZ now trying to run away for himself. Loken gets the kill onto Cole with the ace in the hole. That's going to be 1 for none there. JDG just find themselves a nice little play.
And it means now that JDG are starting to get the ball rolling in their favor. That was what I was about to point out, was that, yes, they'd managed to get a couple of kills there on the roams, but we're still fairly even on gold. Now that will push them to 1,000 gold lead, and they can start to continue to look for plays like that, because if they take the foot off, they're not putting the pressure onto OMG. OMG are happy to just keep farming this one out, but they really need to get into mid lane. They need to get onto this Cassiopeia, because she's going to be such a nuisance if they don't try and shut her down early.
Yeah, they've had 1 gank onto Icon so far. The question is, will they continue to follow up on that game plan? In the meantime, Kanavi head towards this Rift Herald. We'll be able to start the objective off. Yagao's going to be there to support him as well. The rest of the team, in fact, all moving up towards this objective. There is going to be some level of contest coming out from OMG, though. Curse is here, Cold as well, stepping up alongside SMLZ. We could have a little bit of a skirmish on our hands. Lumao is going to be able to get a hook if he can find the right target. But Hacker and Cold blocking for the squishies on the team. Rift Herald down to 2,000 HP. Lumao gets onto Cold. There's going to be a knock-up onto the back line of Loken there. In the meantime, Zoom taking a bit of damage. Loken gets away from Hacker's ultimate. SMLZ trying to finish the job. It's 1 kill for none so far. Make that 2. As Curse manages to find one for himself. Zoom just going to have to try and get away. But there's 1 knock-up. What can Curse do here? Can he finish the job? Doesn't look like it for now as Zoom dodges the knock-up there and will have to flash to safety.
And that is coming back to the Braum pick against the Ornn. This early lock-in of the Ornn being punished by just popping up the shield. No knock-up coming through from the call of the Forge God. And OMG know then they're free to start pushing this fight forward. They pick off Lumao, they pick off Yagao and Kanavi, and they pick up the Rift Herald for themselves in what looked like it could have been a dire situation for OMG.
Well, at least Kanavi does get to trade an objective here. The upside of that fight going the way of OMG is that Kanavi can head back to base and then head down towards this dragon. That's going to even the dragons up. It's an ocean for a cloud. We'll find out what the soul is going to be. 3rd game in a row, it's going to be infernal.
Well, I like that they're giving us these aggressive dragons to start off our first LPL cast. Make it a little bit interesting, but watch Zoom over here. He was expecting that Cold was going to be CC'd for long enough that maybe he'd be able to sneak in a call of the Forge God, but Cold is able to get out, pops that one up, and then Zoom is pretty much a no factor in this fight. Turns into what is a 3v4 situation down on the bottom side of your screen, and they're able to finish off JDG when it looked like child's play, realistically.
Well, 3-3 on the board right now. It's a dragon apiece as well. Importantly, no turrets have been taken just yet. That first tower blood is available still, as the plates have just fallen now. So expect some towers to start to fall in the near future for both of these teams. And a lot of this is going to be down to where the junglers go. The junglers are going to be key in starting these plays off. Hacker on the Jarvan doesn't have his flash available, but Kanavi does have his. The only issue with Kindred is it's difficult to initiate fights quite in the way that Jarvan can.
The biggest problem that I see for Hacker right now is that it's kind of difficult to get into the lanes. I mean, Cold can start you up and at least follow up on your engage, but when you're in up against Lumao and the Nautilus, who can escape pretty easily with the hook, you've got Loken there as well, who's got the 90 caliber net to avoid a lot of your CC. Trying to get into these lanes becomes quite difficult, but I mean, if you're going to just pop down the Rift Herald, that's one way to at least try and get some of these turrets down in your favor.
Hacker's not bothered about the fight right now. He's like, sod it. Just drop the Rift Herald. Let them do what they want with it. See if they can get a tower. I'm going to the mid lane. I'm out of here. But here we go. SMLZ and Cold with the Rift Herald should be able to just finish this tower off for themselves. And that's a good chunk of gold that will go into their pockets. No answer available across the map for that objective. And that's going to be a nice little gold lead now for OMG.
And allow them to get the vision set up as well for when this dragon is going to spawn in about 3 minutes, where you can get in, have control because you've got that turret down on that blue side jungle for JDG, and then they can start to retreat up, but maybe they just find the pick instead.
Yeah, they've managed to find Hacker with his trousers down. And Lumao and Kanavi happy to lock him down and finish off the kill. Looks like the rest of OMG maybe wants to try and punish. The bot lane decides it's not going to be worth it right there. They back away in the end, and Kanavi gets another stack for himself, I believe. And
you've got to be very careful as the bottom lane for OMG now. Yagao can push in that mid wave and then rotate down with the rest of the team if they want to try and go for a dive, but looks like Cassiopeia has made her way across, and they don't want to try and push forward anymore to get this tower.
It's interesting that they, I mean, I'm a little surprised they don't go for the dive there as well with the man advantage, just because you've got Kindred. It's really easy to force a dive on Kindred. You do have the Lamb's Respite to keep your team alive. Zoom is starting to have a real hard time up in that top lane.
Yeah, we are going to get a replay of the pick. It's Hacker thinks he's safe, but unfortunately ends up finding Lumao, who was that just a blind hook?
I love how, I don't think it was blind, but I love how Hacker goes for the Cataclysm there. Literally, Lumao still on full HP at the end of the fight. Like, the shield was enough to just completely block any damage from Hacker, and he was CC'd for so long, there was just no return whatsoever.
OMG find themselves still in this game, though. I mean, this is a very, very even game, and we already talked about how if OMG just give it time, let themselves scale, they'll be in a perfectly fine position. So getting these picks and not accelerating the game for JDG is actually a pretty major issue. Now they're trying to see if they can make a play happen on this top side of the map, but Zoom isn't there. You know that, well, Hacker has just been spotted on a ward, so there's not going to be too much coming from this, although OMG, at least with the pressure Curse has been creating, will get that top lane turret.
Nice little pickup for them. That's going to even things... Oh, it's not going to even things up, sorry. That's going to be 2-0 now on turrets. And the gold lead still in favor of OMG. But both teams playing relatively tentative here. They're being cautious on how much they try and force the issue. Hacker so far has kind of been the one to make these engages happen. But I'm curious how the rest of this game is going to pan out, because, you know, OMG, they've got a small lead for themselves, but it's certainly not anything that's, you know, it's going to change things up dramatically over the next few minutes. But they do have the Aphelios.
They have Aphelios, they have Cassiopeia, they have Aatrox, but they nearly didn't have SMLZ. Yagel will be able to chunk them out, and that's a pretty big point before they start to go towards this dragon. Means that SMLZ will have to be pretty careful about how he approaches these. Does have the Infernum available, so a big L Moonlight Vigil could try and turn this back in their favor.
That's the big thing, is it's all about which weapons he's got available. It's Calibrum and Infernum right now. That is the combo that you want for a team fight. If you can land a big Moonlight Vigil. Here we go, Infernal Drake on the map, and this is the moment. SMLZ could make magic happen here if he can land a huge Moonlight Vigil. It's just going to be one kill, though, because Hacker gets caught out away from his team. And that's going to be one and done. That's going to be a comfortable kill, and another stack for Kanavi.
And that's the problem with OMG's composition, is that if they're not in a position where they've got vision set, oh, SMLZ, careful, buddy. You don't want to go up against Lumao and Kanavi like that.
I mean, SMLZ's just in tears. Kanavi literally just walks in, just autos the red buff once, says thank you very much, and walks away. SMLZ just sat wishing, wishing he had a red buff, to be frank.
I mean, you kind of wish a lot of things for SMLZ in this game. You'd love a 2 kills for yourself, like Loken has.
He does a lot of wishing on Aphelios. He's wishing for a lot of weapons, but
true,
wishing for a red buff is not going to do it.
Thematic, I like it. But yeah, I think OMG are really looking to try and get control of these objectives before they start to go into the fights. The problem is, if you don't have vision, you don't know where Yagao is, you don't know where Kanavi is, that means that SMLZ can't really enter into these fights for the fear of being blown up. Same with Icon, who has to play so defensively. And also, Hacker and Cole can't get the combo off that they're looking for, because they don't know where their prime targets are. So if OMG are going to give over control of these areas before these major objectives spawn, it becomes a lot easier for JDG to navigate these team fights.
Well, gold has been just about evened up off the back of that fight, but the Dragons in favor of JDG so far, and if they can maintain that objective control with Infernal Drakes, that's certainly going to be a huge boon on their side of the board. I'm curious to see how many stacks Kanavi has right now on the Kindred, as it can be such a huge factor. He does have a bit of a lead for himself in that jungle already. But so far, things looking pretty good for JDG. The biggest question for me, though, is OMG in the late game have a lot of power, right? The Cassiopeia, the Aphelios, who's just finished his Hurricane as well. You can see that Icon just stacking up on the Rod of Ages, stacking up on the Seraphs as well. We'll have to see if they're going to be able to have what it takes as it gets towards the late stage of the game. Whether the game lasts that long, because JDG so far have been in control of the map. The question is, can they get enough objectives before we hit that late game stage?
Yeah, and JDG are definitely opting for a more mid-game centric build. Particularly my eyes drift towards Loken. Going for the double BF sword build means that you're really relying on these headshot procs to deal your damage and almost be a secondary burst assassin with Yagao. So I want to see how Loken can try and get into these fights and the targets that he's prioritizing. Because if you don't have that attack speed, it's much more difficult to get through the likes of Hacker, who's going to be that bit tankier. Same with Curse. You're more likely to try and get onto the likes of Icon and SMLZ and finish off whoever Yagao is prioritizing.
Well, the top laners have been sent relegated down to that bottom side there. They're just going to be clearing waves for now. And Zuma's done an excellent job here on this Ornn. He's upgraded 2 items for himself as well, the Sunfire and the Iceborne Gauntlet. So he's going to be incredibly tanky. It's going to be difficult for Curse to really look for kill pressure down in that bottom side. And it has to be said, Ornn's damage is often underestimated, especially in a 1v1. He can really hurt with that Iceborne Gauntlet.
Almost certainly. I mean, I think I've only saw a clip a couple of days ago on Reddit of the Ornn one-shotting and Renekton underneath the tower. That really he probably shouldn't have won in that scenario, but definitely Ornn can dish out the damage when given the opportunity. The problem right now that I see for the Ornn is that he can't really take a lot of damage from the likes of the Cassiopeia. Only has that no magic mantle. And when OMG have started up the Baron,
well, they got spotted. Now that's all. That's going to be the end of that
yeah.
play. They're like, all right, well, let's see if they've got vision. Let's see what they've got here. Just start the Baron, see what happens. It's immediately warded by Kanavi, and they're like, all right, well, it was worth a shot.
Yeah, I mean, the second they get out of there, they're just like, you know what, it was worth a try, but not realistic in any sort of sense. I mean, yeah, we could have Yagao pop over a wall. We could have Kanavi come in with the Lamb Respite just to mess us up. But, I mean, at least the effort was there. A for effort.
Yeah, you gotta appreciate people going for a play like that. Just because ultimately it's low risk, high reward, right? If they happen to not ward, if they happen to not check that at all, and they're just not aware that all of the laners have suddenly vanished, like maybe you just get a free objective. The odds of it happening are very low, but you don't lose too much aside from just a bit of lane priority, which they've done a good job of wrestling back immediately. Lumao, though, gets caught out by Cold. No follow-up from the likes of OMG just yet, though.
This is actually a bit of an issue for JDG because they've lost control of their mid lane. OMG are there. They can just turn back towards it, but they would be ceding control of this dragon that's about to spawn.
Yagao getting a good amount of damage onto Curse here as the Infernal Drake is up. The vision is gone, but OMG are pushing on in. Look at that line of traps coming out from Loken. It makes it so difficult to contest. Hacker's there, and he will get the steal with an auto attack. Zoom the first target's Hacker jumps straight onto the back line, but he's gone way too deep. Goes golden and keeps himself alive. Kanavi now the next target as Lamb's Respite keeps them all breathing for now. Kanavi flashes away, and it's another kill for Loken. Cold goes down as Loken goes Super Saiyan. Curse now trying to do anything in this situation, but there's nothing he can do. Kanavi gets the kill, and that's an ace for JDG.
And now they can start to turn over towards this Baron as well. They've got most of their damage dealers up, although Lumao looking a little bit scarce on the health bar if they want to try and tank this, but JDG come up big in that team fight, and I want to catch the replay here as well in just a moment because there was our Icon tries to make the big hero play, the flash in with the petrifying gaze, and manages to get nobody. It meant that he was caught out in a position where he really didn't want to be in. With the Cassiopeia down, SMLZ was next to be jumped on by Lumao, and there was just no damage there for OMG to try and take that fight after the steal came through from Hacker.
Yeah, and I mean, Hacker goes in, steals the dragon, he's like, hey, I did it, guys. Turns around, and the rest of his team is pretty much dead.
So watch Icon here. Flash in, petrified. Actually, it was backwards. He petrified Gaze the wrong way, which meant nobody from JDG got locked up. Your Cassiopeia is in a horrific point. Curse flashes in, and then SMLZ is like, guys, can somebody help? I have a lot of people back here. And Cold is doing his darndest with the shield, but SMLZ goes down, and with that, all the damage from OMG goes with us.
Yeah, and Loken as well. After Hacker realized he couldn't kill him, Loken's just sat there with his rifle. He's like, so anyways, I started blasting. Just like annihilates the entire team. And they're just going to be more than happy. And that is like perfect situation. Here we go. Big fight coming on out as Curse gets locked on up. Hacker will go down as Loken just chunks them out. And that's a nice, easy kill for the side JDG. But, I mean, what a way to blow this game open. This is basically even. They start an Infernal Drake. Sure, they lose that objective, but not only do they get an ace, they get a Baron on top of it. This was more than they could have wanted out of that fight.
Oh yeah, and now they're able to power through this mid lane as well. You've just picked off Hacker, so the big engage tool that we were looking at is out of the picture. So Loken stepping forward, commanding space with Kanavi. That's 2 towers. We might take a third, although Hacker will be up in just a few moments.
Well, we can see Loken. He has his 3 items, and he just got an upgraded Infinity Edge as well. This is a terrifying Caitlyn as Yagao splits in the bottom lane. These headshots are going to just about one-shot squishy targets. And we were questioning whether Loken with what he was going to be able to do coming back onto this roster for JDG. We were questioning whether the Demacia Cup results would translate. So far they are. Cold is going to be the target. Kanavi is going to be knocked up here. Jumps on back. Huge Cataclysm, but Lamb's Respite keeps everyone alive for now. Huge amount of AoE going across the board. But so far, trading 1-for-1. Hacker the next target as he jumps on in the Infernum. Not doing enough damage. Yagao's clone goes down, but it's traded for an entire team. OMG fall, and JDG will take their first game of the LPL in style.
And this was not convincing from OMG. Tried to make the big plays, but it just never really worked out for them.
Phenomenal performance coming out from JDG. Loken looking amazing. But also, it has to be said, Kanavi, after falling pretty far behind in the early game, doing a really good job on this Kindred of being around on these objectives, and the Lamb's Respites really changing the face of the team fights.
Most certainly, and I think that was the big factor here when we did come to some of these team fights, was just having that little bit of a presence of mind. See the Moonlight Vigil coming out, great. Throw down the Lamb's Respite. There's very little that can be done in that scenario. But as well, I think was a lot of misplays coming through from OMG as well. I mean, the Cassiopeia ult was an unfortunate one. It happens sometimes, but when you were looking towards, abandoning SMLZ when everyone's piled into the Lamb's Respite to try and deal damage, these are things that really shouldn't be happening. You shouldn't be leaving your AD carry out in the open. And for what was the better team fighting composition, they end up losing out the two team fights that they went for in the later stages of the game.
I have to wonder whether the Petrifying Gaze is the old flash bug from Cassiopeia coming back to haunt us. It was patched out a while ago, but I don't know. You used to flash on Cassiopeia and it would ult backwards if you did it immediately. Maybe that's come back again? I don't know.
Could also, there's plenty of things. I mean, it could be a mini-map bug as well. I mean, or mini-map where you click the mini-map, it goes the other way. There's plenty it could be, but that is the result, and that means that JDG are able to find their first victory in the series.
Yeah, that's 1-0 for JDG, and, OMG, we were asking what they were going to be looking like coming on in, whether the Demacia Cup results were going to be kind of all-encompassing. So far, it's looking good, especially when it comes to the team fighting. JDG, once they got into those 5v5s, looking fantastic and really showing OMG, we're here to stay, we're here to make a mark, and we're here to repeat our results from Demacia Cup.
And they did such a good job of controlling the vision coming into those team fights. It meant that they couldn't really set up on the side of OMG the way that they wanted to have the Cataclysm layered with the Glacial Fissure and get this beautiful team fight set up for the Moonlight Vigil. They had no idea where anybody was at any point in time, and it meant that they were able to have JDG thrive in that chaos with the Yagao popping in and out on the LeBlanc, having Loken taking those big headshot procs where possible. So this is where I want to see OMG go back and look at how to execute their composition to a higher standard.
Well, we'll see what OMG have got up their sleeves. That's the end of game number 1. Don't go anywhere. Don't touch that browser. We'll be back in a few minutes with game 2 of OMG against JDG.